Yeah, thank you very much, Annie. I'm glad to be here. Uh, Very delighted with the audience, with the cohort of people who are presenting as well. Yeah, so let me quickly go through certain considerations that we see when transitioning from autonomous networks to autonomous operations. And Alexis actually already set the stage for quite a few subjects on this in this area. Uh, I'm showing now the TM Forum reference architecture, which I guess everybody in the area is knowing. What I wanted to start with is that to point attention about where we are right now, and basically uh, the level of implementation, what we see with our customers in particular, is that they are gradually implementing the closed loops of automation on the resource level. So that's where the most activity pertaining to autonomous networks, what usually is called autonomous networks, is actually happening as of right now on the resource layer. And when we start talking about autonomous operations, we effectively speak that now we have to introduce the closed loop on the service operations level. Now I'll get to the reason why it mentions fast in a moment. TM Forum says that the similar closed loop, of course, is going to happen on the business operations level. I guess we are going to coin this as autonomous business eventually. But I haven't heard about this a lot just yet. Chatbots and CRM, it's not exactly an autonomous thing. So we will see how soon we can get there, but probably by the end of the decade, we definitely will see something happening. But now, when it comes to the infrastructure, that's where, in fact, a lot of people are forgetting that on the level of infrastructure underneath the network functions, underneath your service management applications, there is yet another closed loop happening, and it's not frequently pronounced, but Kubernetes is implementing this closed loop natively, and OpenShift as a distribution of Kubernetes provides additional features on top of that closed loop. When it comes to virtualized, you will have to implement this closed loop basically yourselves, because there were management and orchestration things made, like the ETSI standard have been actually very instrumental in taking things a bit more automated than this level, but the way cloud native applications are doing that is much more seamless, much smoother. Now, TM Forum says that there is yet another closed loop, and it's end-to-end closed loop, which spans all three layers. And this is something that is definitely that we see definitely happening for quite a bit of time. But the level of automation is now increasing thanks to introducing intelligence into these closed loops. And I try to stay away from the term AI because it's frequently conflated when people are saying that AI is actually Gen AI. It's a complicated term, so let me stick to the term intelligence instead, which implies that certain decisions are being made based on the produced observations, and then the execution is taking place based on those decisions, all made by the machine. So that's basically what we think when we aspire to level 4. Now, what TM Forum doesn't say is that there is yet another closed loop, and that's where we are talking about the different kind of pace. And this slow closed loop actually involves the knowledge and intelligence level. Now, I guess eventually when we have this closed loop completely imbued with intelligence, we will get to level 5. But with the current state of technology, but also with the current state of the mindset of people, in fact, should I say, it's not really possible. And again, I'll get to the subject of people and mindset in a second. Now, fast closed loops, they are meant to be done fairly quickly. Even in the virtualized world, in Manu, we still had it basically done in a matter of seconds. Minutes have been considered already slow-ish. Slow closed loop necessarily involves humans because we need to adjust the processes, we need to provide additional governance, we need to do research on what is happening with the network and how to make the network better, how to produce it more revenue, how to make it run more efficiently, and so on and so forth. And this closed loop, the slow closed loop, because it is effectively paramount that we have AI and actually all kinds of AI in this closed loop. This makes a very big question about what we have to do with the AI platform for it. Let me first quickly give a few words about automation in general, and then I will get to AI. So for cloud native automation, and that's why, and again, like I understand most of the people are already in the cloud native world, or at least they say they are, because it's now in fashion. But in fact, cloud native gives very, very tangible benefits when it comes to automation. First off, cloud native automation basically dwells on the fact that you are running intent-based. The Kubernetes is operating in terms of target and current states, and this is nothing but an intent stated, which has to be achieved, and then, which is most important, maintained in an increasingly intelligent manner. The traditional automation has been built about the imperative concept mainly, and it did not mean to maintain the status that is intended. Then the cloud native automation is more decentralized. You cannot just have a single box that manages everything. And cloud native automation provides you with convergent operations across the cloud components. So effectively, you have to break those vendor specific silos because you cannot operate individual verticals anymore. You're basically depriving yourself from getting the benefits of federated communication, from exchanging the data. What Alexey has called data democracy is effectively assuming that there is the exchange of data in the first place. And these data are necessarily rich because if you only give some individual signals here and there, limited APIs and so on, that doesn't move the needle really. Finally, cloud native automation is open source because that just happened. Like it started happening in the open source world, and then it started encroaching into the areas that have been traditionally being closed source and generally very siloed. Again, like it's mainly about breaking the silos, and it's also about standardization, because without standardization, communication and exchange of data becomes really difficult. Now, a few things to pay attention to when we are going for autonomous operations, which become increasingly important. First of all, what we see with the customers, they are going for autonomous operations, or actually even autonomous networks in the first place, but they still try to stick a human in the loop here and there because they are afraid of the machinery that does go rogue and does something wrong. So a lot of those, if not manual operations with those yellow stamps all over the place, but rather with the traffic lights, the gateways, where the human has to say, yeah, this is approved to go ahead. And when you have too many of those, you break the closed loop smoothness. You actually make it a stumbling point every now and then. So you are really losing on the efficiency. But also, you are not eliminating the human factor, which is mainly about mistakes. we probably can agree that these days autopilots in aircraft are operating actually even better than humans. So this is something that we expect to happen in telco networks just as well, where we trust the machinery to do the right thing, and humans are already providing governance. So even where some gates have to remain, you have to group them together. And of course, it goes without saying that you have to automate what's still manual more and more and more. Another aspect is, and I've seen a survey recently made by one of the agencies that says that the biggest, it's actually was TM Forum as well. The biggest problem with introducing AI at the moment is the integration. Integration is a huge issue, and not just because of the legacy systems, but because of organizational boundaries. The Conway's law, unfortunately, hits very hard for large organizations like telcos. And that's where the only way to improve the situation is, in fact, to improve communication within the organizations. It's not even about the technology. The technology will follow, but fixing things inside your organization is important. And then once people start talking to each other, which is really important, you can use the APIs, and where you need to go across the network segments that have different security levels, for example, you can use the secret managers to cross the boundaries in automatic mode. And again, grouping the gates stands here as well as the way to improve communication. All these things that I'm discussing are our actual experience in trying to implement autonomous operations in real world projects. Now, Alexis already made the very clear statement that data is actually fundamental to all the thing. And we keep hearing that data is actually a problem, but we started hearing it less of it, which is very reassuring. It looks like people actually are trying to get a grip, get their data under control, get them like in a better quality. So over the last, I think, couple of years, the situation is certainly changing. The further suggestions here is, of course, to continue to replacing the unreliable data sources, including humans, by the way. Excel sheets have to go in the past completely. Like, please just stop using them. And the inventories have to be cleansed and unified. And the trend towards using digital twins here is especially useful from my perspective. Now, all this together actually gives us an interesting point that we are talking about not so much technology. We are talking about improving the processes, making them better, and reducing the number of things that involve a human in one way or another. But most importantly, we have to pay attention to those very humans, because on the one hand, and I keep hearing that AI will displace jobs and so on. This is, to an extent, this is true, but most importantly, the mindset of people have to change from how do I do that, or what am I doing today, to what am I deciding today, what am I supposed to decide on today, and what I can give over to AI or to automation overall today or tomorrow. Because all those cases that I expressed before, if people don't have the specific mindset of reducing the number of gateways or reducing the amount of manual operations or reducing the number of dirty sources of data, if that is not happening on the daily basis, it becomes really difficult to proceed to other things, to improve the processes and introduce the relevant technology. Now, speaking of AI, and notice that I haven't talked about AI so far so much because it's actually very simple and uh, very straightforward thing. This is a new emerging technology, and you have to just decide whether you are going to build or buy your AI fix. You are consuming it as software as a service that's kind of cheap, very low entry. It's easy to consume, but you have absolutely no control over the implementation. In some cases, you don't even have control over the data. The set of use cases implemented is also under question. If you're proceeding further to things like model as a service, now you're getting kind of a raw machinery at your disposal, but the data, you control more of it, and you also have your own use cases to implement, but it's of course harder a bit. And then you can have your own platform. You might borrow GPUs from somewhere, consume them as a service, but at least the models and that slow closed loop is now actually owned by you. And my personal belief is that telecoms will end up in some of a kind of middle ground situation where, on the one hand, they might offload some pieces in a software as a service fashion. But then that integration piece, that integration question, rears its head very significantly because those SaaS stacks are frequently difficult to integrate with in many respects, including security. With own platform, you have a much more legwork to do, but at least you have utter control over how you integrate things together and where your data is going in the first place. Now, the good AI platform would include quite a few of things that should be, of course, managing MLOps, that has to have generative AI capabilities. That's a given. Agentic, it's not here on the list, but definitely should be introduced here as well. It should be scalable. It should provide you with the necessary automation around AI. Well, of course, integrate AI with automation as well. It has to be secure, and it has to provide you with the necessary parts that implement responsibility and governance. And of course, it has to be supported. So Red Hat provides this suite of products that implements exactly that. We are providing the smallest factor, Red Hat AI Inference Server, which is specifically aiming at Gen AI inference, because this is something that is currently very actively consumed across the world, and it has to be done very efficiently to be not cost prohibitive. We provide Red Hat Enterprise Linux AI as a Red Hat Enterprise Linux, the Linux distribution, married with the AI tooling that allows you to experiment and iterate quickly on your AI models. Again, a contribution to that slow closed loop. And then Red Hat OpenShift AI is the powerhouse that has everything together. And that effectively can be the foundation of your own knowledge and intelligence stack. All that is running across clouds. Also, it can be introduced into the edge in some cases. It supports the number of hardware accelerators, and it provides you with a trusted, consistent, and comprehensive foundation for everything that you are doing to make your autonomous operations possible. So just to very quickly go through the list of features: model development, model serving and monitoring, entire lifecycle management of the models, both generative and predictive. And you can use simulation models just as well, for example, and resource optimization and management. Now, let me quickly go through a couple of use cases, how AI can be introduced and what we try to implement, actually. One concept is called dark knock, and it's effectively a way to reduce the amount of work that Service Operations Center has to do in terms of human labor to zero. This is a very ambitious concept, and it involves a very heavy use of AI. And I don't say that the current state of, in particular, generative AI is completely ready to implement that, but we're definitely moving there. But at this point, the main workhorse that is being used in this kind of concepts is really predictive models. Predictive models are used everywhere, and in many cases where L4 certification is claimed these days. For example, there was a recent announcement from True that they achieved L4 for service assurance. And True Thailand is one of our head customers. This is the case where predictive intelligence actually is taking center stage. Another more encompassing example is Telco AI Ops, as we call it, which is effectively the another moniker for autonomous operations. And this, again, like this reiterates the subject of having the slow loop where you are training the AI, and then the fast loop where AI inferencing, be it generative inferencing or predictive inferencing, is being used. So this is the way to combine the two loops together using the same platform underneath. So at this point, I'm going to stop. Thank you very much for listening, and I'm really happy to answer any questions.
Okay, that was interesting, Alexey. We've got one question from the audience, and that is, should there be one unified inventory across all domains or several inventories per purpose?
Having OSS, BSS background, I absolutely adore this question because I've been haunted with it for the most of my career. And let me get back to this picture actually to answer this question. When we're looking at it, the resource operations here, they have the so-called federation interfaces between them. And if you have one unified inventory to rule them all, then first, it's really big. Okay, probably we can throw it to the big data platform, because consider that this inventory would include especially, like in particular, configuration for everything, and probably even the information about how the whole thing is behaving. It's not exactly metrics. Individual metrics are probably lying elsewhere, but at least some traits. This is a huge trove of information that doesn't need to sit together. And again, the same problem that Alexis already identified is raised in this case. If you are keeping everything together, then you have to have a singular data model. So time has proven that this is impossible to implement. So by now, I think it's very clear that the way forward is not the unified inventory, but a federated inventory, where you have many nodes that each is keeping inventory for its own segment, and these nodes can exchange information between each other as necessary using standardized interfaces. And these interfaces, by the way, are already specified by TM Forum, so it's not something completely new or emerging that we have to do. They're already there. You can use them right now. And in this way, you can keep separate data models, maybe have some adapters to adjust the models here and there, and then just have it in this way.
Okay, and we have another question. Could you, are there any references of Red Hat OpenShift AI in production in telcos? I appreciate confidentiality can be tricky with customers.
Indeed, I unfortunately I cannot name the customers just yet. Stay tuned in this regard. The press releases are coming. Let me put it this way.
Yeah, I know that's always.
But yeah, indeed, first customers started using OpenShift AI, and they are actually quite happy to use it and explore it. Again, like I cannot call names just yet. No, there are not too many of those. Again, like it's an emerging subject, and in fact, it's a bit of a shame that people started looking at AI only now that Gen AI has become like in every news outlet and so on. Because predictive AI has been there for a very, very long time, and it's been very useful all these years, like a decade or more. And but now that everybody is raging around the subject, okay, we roll out that special platform that's also based on open source projects that have been there for about a decade by now. And this is something that customers started actually to like buy, use at large, like in really like significant quantities. So yes, that's
Sorry.
unfortunately, yeah, I cannot fully answer this question at the moment, but yes,
Okay, well,
we
we'll
do
have
have.
you back maybe a little way down the line when you can make them public. So
Absolutely.
I thought when you were speaking two things, I really liked the fact that you were saying that so many people feel obliged to insert a human, um, somewhere
Yeah.
into the process. And it reminded me of David Tomlin in one of our events earlier in the year. He's the CTO of City Fibre, and somebody in the audience
Oh
asked
yeah.
David about autonomy and automation and the biggest lesson he'd learned. And he said, don't set yourself any false deadlines. And if you're automating something, automate all of it. Because if you try to meet the deadline by saying, oh, we'll just have a human do this bit, then the whole thing kind of collapses as soon as you need to make a change. And
Precisely.
I've been hearing a lot about the brittleness of autonomy, where the minute you change something, everything. So I think that's really interesting. You made those points that really resonated with a lot of conversations I've had of late.
Which makes the subject of a slow closed loop really important.
Yeah.
You really have to make it right and have it also automated as much as possible itself. Like, okay, yeah, the decisions, the research, the creativity of a human, of course, doesn't go anywhere. And it's exactly the place where all of us actually have to apply our best. But then there are pieces like deploying the models, running the continuous integration, continuous deployment, continuous testing. These things absolutely have to be in place so that you don't spend time on doing them manually. And this is the least thing that you can do to make it really well working, because you will have to iterate, even though I called it slow, you will actually have to iterate on daily basis on these things eventually. And that really, like, you cannot afford not automating things, much like we said that you cannot afford not automating 5G run deployments, because there is just so many things to do that it's just inconceivable that a human would do it.
Well, it's
So
not
this
there's
is,
a,
yeah, this is really important.
it's not only there's so many things to do, they all have to be done at once is a real serious problem, isn't it? Um,
Yeah.
Alexey, thank you very much. That was really interesting. We look forward to
Thank you very
seeing
much,
you
everyone. Thank you for the
in
questions.
2026.